During the 1950s, with the help of the Museum of Modern Art and the Congress for Cultural Freedom, the CIA funded various cultural movements, including Abstract Expressionism. This was part of a program of cultural diplomacy developed during the Great War under Nelson Rockefeller as the leader of the Inter-American Council during the war. Nelson Rockefeller was also a close friend of Allen Dulles and later would become president of the Museum of Modern Art. Another tie between the CIA and the Museum of Modern Art was Rockefeller's friend John J. Whitney. Whitney was a trustee on the board, as well as an officer of the Office of Policy Coordination, the CIA's division dedicated to covert action. The ties between the CIA and MoMA go on and on and on. Tom Braden, another trustee and eventual president of the museum, was also involved with the OPC, and countless others as well. In hindsight, the connection between the CIA and Abstract Expressionism might not be as surprising as we think it is. Abstract Expressionism was meant to be the perfect counterpoint to the Soviet style of socialist realism. Under Stalin's rule, artists were allowed only to portray scenes of Soviet everyday life in an extremely realistic style. However, no criticism of the Soviet Union was allowed, resulting in an art form of propaganda. The Soviet Union would point to their art as an example of their cultural achievements and presented themselves as heirs to the European Enlightenment, all the while presenting the US as a country barren of culture. This was part of their own program of psychological warfare and propaganda, spearheaded by Cominform, the Communist International Information Bureau. However, the US and the CIA opposed this point of view through the creation of the Congress for Cultural Freedom and the promotion of Abstract Expressionism. Abstract Expressionism was a perfect counterpoint to the Soviet socialist realist style. Abstract Expressionists were not necessarily united by a common style, but united in their interpretation of art as something dynamic. There was no observational painting. Instead, Abstract Expressionists valued the gesture, or the act of creating the artwork. Most well known today is Jackson Pollock, famous for his technique of dripping and flinging paint across the canvas. He was, in fact, one of the artists sponsored by the CIA. He was perfect for the role, quintessentially American, rugged, and cowboy-esque, and his artwork was quite literally and physically free and energetic. The CIA saw the Abstract Expressionists and recognized their potential. It was quite literally and gesturally free, avant-garde, and completely unique. It would be the epitome of American free thought and creativity. Except there was one problem to this. The public and Congress absolutely despised modern art. Truman himself said, "If that's art, then I'm a Hottentot," when describing modern art. And similarly, Senator McCarthy described modern art as un-American and publicly denounced it. The CIA's favorite method was a joint public-private venture. The CECF acted as the CIA's front, contracting the Museum of Modern Art in order to sponsor exhibits. The museum would then provide the art exhibits, while the CIA would fund the exhibits through various dummy foundations, the most prominent of which being the Farfield Foundation. This was headed under Julius Fleischmann, who also had CIA connections. However, all of this raises questions of free thought and artistic integrity. Did the covert funding of art inherently contradict the idea of free thought? What does this say about the integrity of modern art as a historical movement? As stated by Francis Stoner Saunders, to what degree was it admissible for another state to covertly intervene in the fundamental process of organic intellectual growth? It is important to note that the covert funding of modern art is unlike most other covert propaganda interventions. Although highly politicized, this specific operation can be considered apolitical, in that it did not have a directed specific goal the way there was in, say, Italy, where the United States directly intervened in domestic politics. And considering the question of artistic integrity, patronage of the arts has always existed. There have always been tastemakers throughout the history of the arts. There have always been those who dictate the way art movements fall. The Renaissance exists as one of the most important movements in art history because of the patronage of the Pope and the Medici brothers. These people commissioned some of the most famous works in art history today. There's no difference between CIA patronage of the arts and historical patronage of the arts besides the covert aspect. and the CIA only took the covert route because the public despised abstract expressionism. But that's not necessarily new or unexpected. The public always hates what is avant-garde. That's the point of avant-garde work. It's meant to test and push boundaries, and if the CIA was willing to recognize that, then perhaps it was in fact doing a good thing. And in the end, to say that the CIA controlled and dictated the landscape of modern art during the 1950s is irrelevant. There have always been tastemakers, and besides, artists have and always will do what they will.